Hello, everyone. My name is Szentes with Prosperity Mindset, and today I have an amazing guest. Her name is Molly, who has studied with many masters and traveled around the world and applied the great teachings that she has learned from them to her own life. And Molly is uniquely qualified to help launch you from where you are today to the next level in your business. From a long line of teachers, writers, and preachers, Molly has an unusual combination of spiritual, visionary, high-tech, very practical and business-savvy approach. She's also an artist and a globe-trotter, a writer, a speaker, and facilitator and leader. Please welcome Molly. Molly, how are you today?
Hi, I'm good. Thanks for having me.
That's amazing to have you as well. Please tell us, what got you into this coaching world and how, what were the initial inspirations for you?
Yeah, I mean, it was sort of an organic pathway. I think anybody who finds themselves doing this work oftentimes didn't intend to go this direction in their life. You know, when they ask little kids what they want to be when they grow up, most of us didn't say coaches
Yeah.
or healers probably off the bat. But I was raised with a very spiritual upbringing. My mom used to channel the Akashic record and tap into deep spiritual truths. So when I was asking questions about, what is life and who are we and what's this human thing we're doing as a kid, I was getting pretty cosmic download kind of answers to those questions. So I was a seeker, I would say, from a young age. I had a deep fascination with past lives um, and just what it is to be incarnated, a human in a body. What's the point of living? How do we learn these lessons? And how do we evolve as people? And that was sort of always an interest of mine. And as I was in my 20s after college, I was sort of wandering the world, traveling, having adventures, probably partying too much back then. But I was always seeking the next path. I was seeking my path. And for me, I knew I didn't want to have some dead end job. I didn't want to end up in the corporate world. I didn't want to do anything that didn't feel in alignment for me. And so for a while that looked like kind of from the outside, aimless wandering. And through that aimless wandering, I was reading books, I was digging into whatever I could find that felt resonant to me. And that sort of path led me to a workshop with Dr. Brian Weiss, who's one of the masters of learning about past life regression therapy, where you actually go into a hypnotic state uh, and explore your past selves, whether in this lifetime or other lifetimes, whether you believe in that or not. It could be fictionalized, but miraculous healing can occur through that process. And so I wanted to learn it. And when I was there, I realized for the first time in my life that I could actually help people, that I could be more than just me on my own adventure in this life. And that broke something open, and I started down a new path where I wanted to get trained in hypnosis so I could at least practice this tool on people in my life. And that led me to, I was living in a tiny apartment at the time with my boyfriend that I couldn't possibly practice this stuff in that space. So I rented this little office. And once I found that office, it was basically 11 days between me deciding to rent this space to try this new fun tool I had to realizing if I was going to have an office, I should have liability insurance, which means that I should name my business, which means I should have a website, which means I need a logo, which means all these things just popped into being over the course of about 11 days. So I went from having this cool new modality I wanted to practice to suddenly being a business owner, and then had to go through the transformation and kind of identity crisis of who am I now? If I'm an entrepreneur, what does that even mean? How do I dress? How do I talk? How do I meet people? How do I get clients if I'm actually going to do this as a business? And I spent the first year kind of navigating all of that. And the second year realizing that I talk pretty fast and the hypnotic trance induction is not really fun for me most of the time because I like to talk fast and I like to share knowledge and alchemize wisdom and things like that. So I started looking into coaching and trying out different sort of niches or directions or um, different sort of topics I wanted to speak on. And as I did that, I wanted to get out of an office. I'm a nomad. I'm a wandering, traveling kind of person, and I feel most free and alive when I'm on the road and adventuring to new places. So I wanted to get out of needing an office to run my business. So I started building courses and workshops and taking lots of trainings on how to do that successfully. And after a while, I realized I was connected to all these amazing healers and leaders and spiritual guides and mentors, and they all needed to know how to do these things that I had mastered doing. So I kind of realized that I had the language of being a healer and being a spiritual seeker and the sort of awareness of the energetics of all of that mixed with all this technology know-how and all this copywriting sort of wisdom. And so I bridged those two worlds together and started helping my friends grow their businesses with that. And that's just taken off. And that's what I've been doing for the last 6 or 7 years.
That sounds fascinating. So, who do you help, and what is your business about?
Yeah, so I mostly work with coaches, holistic practitioners, healers. Some are spiritual leaders. Um, I help these people who trade in wisdom and guidance to bring their brilliance through this weird online world that we now live in so that their soulmate clients can find the support that they've been craving, that they've been looking for, that they've been yearning for, and get that work delivered to them in as many easy and, effective ways as possible.
So, do you work with both women and men, or do you you
I
specialize in
mostly
one
work
gender?
with women or female identifying people, but I have had male clients over the years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And in order to become your client, what does the client have to possess or have? What are the pre-qualifiers?
Yeah, the main thing is I mostly work with people who already have a one-on-one practice of some kind. So I have great referrals if people are just starting out wanting to be a coach or wanting to start a business of how to start getting that initial ball rolling. Most of the clients that I work with personally and in my courses and programs already know who their target audience is and have already usually been doing one-on-one sessions with those people for either a short time or many, many years. And now they're ready to expand into courses or programs or broadcasting their message in a bigger way in the online world.
Okay, gotcha. What do you see as the biggest challenge for your clients? Is it
Yeah,
self-esteem, or is it not being
yeah.
technologically? Uh,
So one of the things that I work on heavily is using the actual tools and systems and building the actual messaging. So the copywriting, the content creation, that stuff. But as I started doing that for the first few years, I realized that some people can set all the pieces of the puzzle up and the words are great and beautiful, and yet it still doesn't go anywhere, or people don't sign up, or they don't seem to build any traction. So that's when I realized that I needed to bring back in the sort of inner work that I had originally started my business doing, which is, do you believe this is possible? Do you actually want more people to find you? And do you want to be visible in a way that allows your message to be shared? And if you don't, or if there's any fear or limitation or emotional block to that stuff happening and working out, or if you really have decided you don't want to make money and yet you're going out trying to sell things, there's a lot of inner limitations that we absorb from this reality that we get trained with from our parents that need to be looked at and reframed or rewritten altogether or reprogrammed ideally so that we're no longer blocking the things that we say that we're asking for. So that's a huge part of the work that I do in all of my programs and in my one-on-one work with my clients is when we notice that energetic block, we address it, we look at it, we unpack it, we try to rewrite it, and then infuse that new rewritten story into our lives as much as possible.
I really loved how you said or asked the question, it's like, do you really want to become visible? Because I could
Yeah.
see how a lot of the healers would probably ask themselves the question a couple times after you asked them the question, because as I imagine, and this is your expertise, many of them have not had the public speaking ability or the copywriting background. So what is the like, do you have a certain process, or do you have some like a system that you follow when somebody enrolls in your program? Like, can you describe more like an A to Z type of thing? Like, if who's your ideal client when they come to you? What are they seeking, and how do they graduate?
Yeah, so I have about a dozen different courses and programs or offerings depending on where someone is in their journey. And some of them are just about uh, getting your email list set up. One of them is just about learning how to hire a virtual assistant. One of them is about how to create your next course or your program or offering if you actually want to build a content machine. And then my larger program is called Magic, which is Magnetic Influencer Collective. And that is where we actually go into a lot more of the energetics behind our marketing. So we're actually doing the creating social media posts or setting up emails to go out to your list or doing the work to run your business, but we're bringing in that awareness about what's our energetic state around this right now and how can I alter my energetic state so that it's more conducive to creating the reality that I want. So I would say there's a lot of different modalities and tools: guided meditation, hypnosis, journaling, self-reflection, and also I love the tools of access consciousness, which is a whole school of thought that a lot of people haven't even heard of. But it's all about asking questions and then clearing the energy that comes up. So once you're aware that there's a limitation or a block, you start asking questions about it. Okay, if I'm, for the example of the visibility, if I'm noticing that I actually am really afraid of becoming visible, well, what would it take for me to want people to find me? What would it take for me to be ready to allow my light to shine brighter? What would it take for me to transform my fear into enthusiasm? And asking that question might bring up an energy. And then the tools of access consciousness are there to help us sort of clear that energy that came up so that we have more of that possibility available to us.
That sounds really awesome.
Yeah.
And I have had a fair share of contact with different healers. Um, can you name a few of the healers? Like what type of healing do they do that you enjoy helping?
Yeah, I mean, tons of things. Some of the more fun modalities that I've worked with are heart math, EFT, access consciousness, again, is a huge one for me. EFT is emotional freedom technique, which is like tapping. I love that one a lot. Breath work. I have had a number of clients who are breath work geniuses. Um, and a lot of mindset work, people who help just coach people through whatever they're going through to elevate their experience of life, to get more of themselves back from whatever they've done. I work with a lot of people who use shamanic tools and like working with the spirits, working with the ancestors, working with the fairies, working with all kinds of different extra dimensional creatures and beings to support us in this human realm. But yeah, there are so many modalities out there, and I would never say that one is gonna fit everyone. I think it's really important for us to try things until we find something that fits. And for me, access consciousness has been one of the modalities or tools that has shifted more faster for me than anything else that I've ever tried, where I will wake up the next day and life is just different than it was before, or I am different, or my body has changed. Like, it's amazing how fast those tools can work.
That's really awesome. And do you do any like morning meditation? Do you prepare for a day, or do you just have a way to generate this energy that you are projecting so nicely?
Absolutely. I am a huge, huge fan of having a daily ritual. Which brings me to also mentioning Dr. Joe Dispenza, who is life-changing at helping people learn to meditate in a way that I mean, my life is dramatically different on a day that I meditate versus a day that I don't meditate.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I meditate sometimes with guided meditations like Joe Dispenza, sometimes with an app called Think Up, where I record my affirmations so that I can sort of send them into my subconscious, sometimes just silent meditation, Vipassana meditation. But my bigger practice, which meditation is a huge anchor point for me, the thing that has kept me most sane or most productive, I would say, in my life and in my business growing is having a daily journaling practice. And I write every morning before I get out of bed, and I write every night before I turn the light off in bed. And for me, that serves many purposes. It helps me sort of tap into appreciation and gratitude. It helps me bring my energy to that place of the high flying disc, as Abraham Hicks would call it. It also allows me to process whatever emotional stuff is going on for me that day and actually self-reflect on how do I want to see this, allowing me to reframe my experience so that it's helpful to me rather than harmful for me. And it also is sort of a touch point where I reconnect with what am I asking for? What am I creating? What are my visions? What would I like to get done tomorrow? Or, what is that big vision that I'm stepping toward? How can I see it? How can I like tap into it on a regular basis so that it comes to pass more easily?
That's really wonderful to hear all these things because I have studied spirituality for many, many, many years. And I know that the coming future is going to be all about spirituality, learning to become spiritual, connecting, reconnecting with our spiritual nature. So my question to you is, knowing all these wonderful things, which are extremely important, how did you come up with, or how did you connect that with business? Because you are really bringing in a very healthy combination of the spiritual techniques and the world and the mindset into a tangible, practical business world.
Yeah.
So can you tell us more about that?
Yeah. I mean, I think part of it was that energy and spirituality and connection to something greater than myself, whether it's a highest self or source energy, whatever you want to call it, that was sort of part of me and part of my seeking before I ever had a business. And I felt when I started going down the business path, I was like, oh, that's all people want from me. People want help with the technology. People want help with the pieces of the puzzle. And then I was feeling my soul sort of like crushed about that being all my work was. And then I was also noticing for me, it took big leaps and bounds of emotional breakthroughs and also like the willingness to use tools to transform how I saw something to allow that success to come, to allow the money to increase, to allow the people to show up and me be willing to receive them. And so I knew that that had to be infused back into my business so that my clients could get the results that they wanted to get, have more success in their businesses, and also feel like the leader that they were wanting to become, feel like they could hold that much space for more people to arrive, feel like they had the confidence to even show up and invite people in. And so it was sort of an organic but necessary step to merge those two worlds back together and be willing to have that conversation. If people come in thinking, oh, we're just going to do business stuff, it's like, no, we're also going to look at whether you want this to grow or not, and what might be in you that's saying, no, no, wait, as we're saying, yes, yes, let's go. And yeah, being willing to have that conversation and bring that in has made my work so much more fulfilling. I leave almost every call I have with a client or every group call that I lead for my programs just beaming with that energy because I'm now allowing all those parts of me to come through my work. And I think that's a really important part of what makes our work magnetic, no matter what kind of business you're running, is when you're really fully embodied and showing up in it to do that work too.
This is awesome. I really enjoy listening to you because I love the energy and I love the congruence that you bring to this conversation. How long have you been doing this?
I started my business about 7 years ago.
Okay, you mentioned that. I was just not entirely certain.
Yeah.
So, what would you, uh, where do you see yourself 5 years from now?
Yeah, great question. Because if you are watching us on video, you might notice I'm inside of a Sprinter van that I turned into a tiny home. So I live nomadically still. I run my business completely remotely. And I wrote a novel in my 20s before I ever started my business where the world ends and we move back into communities that live off the land and take care of each other. So I have some things in the works that are looking at building a property, creating a retreat center, having an actual venue and space for transformational events to happen in person. And that's the thing that I see for myself. The next 5 or 10 years are going to be about building that space and cultivating that community center, basically, for people to gather and get the tools that they need or desire to transform their lives.
That's awesome. And do you see yourself teaching, or do you see you having or having hired some other instructors?
I see it as a space that people can come and bring their magic to facilitate their own events, like a retreat space that you would have hosting your events. So I see that definitely. And I don't see a point in my life where I will probably always be facilitating in some way. I think
Okay.
that I kind of have a knack for, I don't want to say I'm a natural born leader, but in some ways I am. I have a desire to contribute to people, and I have I think an energy that is magnetic sometimes, and people want to come and hear, what am I learning about? What do I have to say? And I'm a lifelong learner, so I'm always going to be gaining new knowledge and wanting to share that with people.
Hmm.
So yes, I definitely think I'll be facilitating events on my own property as well, but it's more so to have another space for this kind of work to happen for all the people that I know who want to lead events, who want to be face to face with their group of people and support them through a journey, an experience that transforms them. And I think it would be really fun to get to cultivate that space.
That sounds like a fantastic idea. I personally also had visions of having some healing center. I haven't quite figured out what I would be doing, but I'm sure it will happen one day. So what I'd like to ask you is, what is in your experience, a minimum length of time for your ideal client to transform from where they are today versus where they want to be? What is a recommended length of time, or what is your experience that people need?
Yeah. It really depends on the person. And I sort of am annoyed by those people who say, just take this 6-week course and you'll have a $10,000 month. It's like, that doesn't work for everybody. There is
Uh-huh.
no perfect recipe that will work for every person. Two people could be running what looks on the outside like the exact same business, and they are such entirely different people by design that the business is never going to be the same once you come in, or how they facilitate. So I don't have an answer for that. It really depends on where the person is when they show up to work with me, which could be varying degrees of experience, and what they desire to create next. So some people will come to me. My average package for a one-on-one person is what I call a 6-month package, but people can work through that as fast or as slow as they want. So some people will take that 6-month package and it's done in 2.5 months because they just wanted to get to action. And some people will let that 6-month package, spread over 8 or 9 months, or even a year sometimes. And that just depends on how much energy they have about the creation of the thing they show up to make with me. Some
Mhm.
people want it to launch right now and get the work done and do the work to get out of the way so that it can happen. And some people, it takes more time for that gestation process of the project, of the vision to come to life. And I hold space for that, for the divine birth date of that thing that we're making to have space.
This is fascinating. In your experience, what do you see as the one of the biggest challenges for people who
Yeah,
are
I
in the
mean,
healing field?
like
Sorry.
we said earlier, believing that we can, believing that we
Mhm.
should. One of the things that comes up, which I don't name it this all the time, but the witch wound, the ancestral memory we have of healers and of spiritual people being burned at the stake or cast out of society for their magic. I think that we've carried that through, and whether we have just an ancestral DNA or a historical memory of it, or we actually have past lives of being the witch or the people burning the witch, that has resonated through time and space, that I think it's still a real fear for some people. And to that, I say this is, for the most part, this is the lifetime where we don't get killed for our magic. So we try to do what we can to transform that fear.
I like how you said that this time, or this lifetime, we don't get killed for our magic. So I imagine that you having learned past life regressions and many other healing and release techniques, you help your clients overcome those, what did you call them, witch wounds?
Which ones? Yeah.
Which is really, really interesting. I love that term. Um, how much, in terms of like percentage, is this witch wound show up in your clients? Is it in every client? What's the ratio?
I wouldn't say we name it with every client, but I think with most people who start a business like this, especially if you're on the far end of the woo spectrum, which probably many of the people out there listening to this episode are, it's there on some level. And whether it's a thing that's running you right now, or whether it's just like like don't get too big, don't get too visible, or
Yeah.
else. It might not even be like a tangible thought, but there's that hesitation of, what will people think of me? Will I be judged? Will I be like ostracized? Will I be hated upon? Will I need to change my name if I do this?
Yeah.
There's some version of that fear, I think, in everyone.
I love
And
that.
some people let it run them more than others. And I will say it is something that can change for any of us. It doesn't have to run us.
Yeah, this is great because I remember having gone through a similar phase. Like, oh boy, do I need to have a plastic surgery done in order to change my name? I
Right.
love what you said. So, Molly, how can your clients or your ideal clients find you?
Yeah. Everything is on my website. It's Wild Hearts with an S, wildheartsriseup.com.
Okay.
And I've got two books there, two podcasts, two different quizzes you can take. One is about what level of thought leader you are. One is about what your money mindset flavor is. So there's lots of fun things to interact with and check out. And I have a whole page of free things you can download or watch, and then another whole page of all the programs and courses that I offer.
I will post your website link in the description below this video. And in closing, what is it that you wish to say to the world or say to your ideal clients, something that comes from the heart?
Yeah. Yeah. The thing that I say at the end of every podcast episode, which is my best advice to anyone, especially if you're on a path like this, is keep asking big questions and keep taking bold action because you're here for a reason.
This is beautiful. Well, Molly, this is really has been an incredible pleasure to meet you and do this interview with you. And, I really hope and wish the best for you. And I hope that many incredibly wonderful clients come your way, and then you can make that impact that you are here to make.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Robert. And thank you everyone for listening.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.